All right. Well, welcome, church. Welcome to another edition of Living by the Book. Again, George is again, on his vacation. So I had to cover his seat. Ask Pastor Rick a great question today, and we have maybe a few. First question for you is, what is the difference between the Book of Life and the Lamb's Book of Life?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a question that's been contested in a variety of contexts, and there are people, depending on your background and perspective, conflate them, and there are some who see a staunch difference between them. So it's a difficult question. I think that generally speaking, the Book of Life can be descriptive of, or we can understand it to be, the book of all of those who are alive at any given point. So when you die, your name is taken out of it. When you're born, your name is put in it, whether you're a believer or an unbeliever. Now, there is a reference that exists that seems to indicate that it's the saints that are in the Book of Life, which causes people to say, well, it's got to be the Lamb's Book of Life then. But I don't think so. I think it can simply mean that even the saints are in that Book of Life, right? So that they would be in both the Book of Life and the Lamb's Book of Life, right? So, the Book of Life seems to be a general record of all those who are living, whereas the Lamb's Book of Life is a unalterable book of the redeemed that is written even before a person is redeemed. So, like, you're not written into the Book of Life until you're born, but then you're written in the Book of Life before you're even born, right? Or the Book of the Lamb's Book of Life before you're even born. So I think that that's important. For instance, your name can be removed from the Book of Life upon your death. Like, read Psalm 69, verse 28. Psalm 69, 28.
May they be blotted out of the Book of Life, and may they not be recorded with the righteous.
Okay, so may they be blotted out of the Book of Life, and may there never be a ability for the name of a righteous person and the name of a wicked person to be written in the same book. So this is an imprecation against the wicked. Mm-hmm. And that's what his desire is. And then in Revelation 3, look at Revelation 3, there is another reference in verse 5, Revelation 3:5.
Revelation 3:5. He who overcomes will thus be clothed in white garments, and I will not erase his name from the book of life, and I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels.
So basically what that means is that he is not going to take their life, that idea of erase them from the book of life. That doesn't mean that they have eternal security, but that means that they will not be disciplined, like we talked about in last week, right? Mm-hmm. Where we saw that God will take your life as a result of sin that's unconfessed. But here, he who overcomes will thus be clothed in white garments and will not be blotted out of the book of life. So because of the potential of being blotted out, it's a reference to the book of life, not to the Lamb's book of life, because you cannot be blotted out of the Lamb's book of life as we understand it. Another one is in Philippians chapter 4, in verse 3, Philippians 4:3.
Indeed, true companions, I ask you also to help these women who have shared my struggle in the cause of the gospel, together with the Clement and also the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are in the book of life.
Okay, so again, I think that's a reference to the book of life. Now, the reference to the righteous being in the book of life causes people to believe that it's the Lamb's book of life and the book of life is the same thing. And so that's where the origin of the conflation comes.
I see.
That it's just a reference to the same thing. Now, I think that it's a little bit different because in Revelation 13, if you turn back to Revelation 13, look at verse 8.
All who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life or of the Lamb who has been slain.
So here, your name is not written in the book of the Lamb's book of life if you're not a believer. So you can't be blotted out if you're an unbeliever, blotted out of the Lamb's book of life because you're never in it. So here you see the Lamb's book of life is only containing the names of those who are believers. And it's written from before the foundation of the world. So it's not when you're born that you're written in here. It's from before the foundation of the world, your name is written in here. Whereas the book of life seems to be a book that you are entered into when you're alive and removed when you die, right? So here, this is a book that is permanent. Go ahead and read Revelation 21, verse 27 as well.
And nothing unclean, and no one who practices abomination and lying shall ever come into it, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life.
So that seems to be a reference to the record of the redeemed, of the elect, that already in Revelation 13, we noted, is written before the foundation of the world. So the names of all the believers are written from before man is even created. The Lamb's book of life is set, unalterable, right? Now, look in Revelation 20 and verse 12 and read that.
And I saw the dead and the great, the small, standing before the throne, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged from the things which were written in the books, according to the deeds.
Okay, so there was a book of life, apparently, is a book that is edited frequently as you sin and what you do, because the book of life has things written in it, right? And then verse 15 is another reference.
And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire.
So the book of life, obviously, when you die, your name's removed from it. And so if that's the book that God's judging you by, not the Lamb's book of life, but the other book, and you die and your name is removed from it, it seems that it's a cause for judgment, that your name's not written in the Lamb's book of life either. Now, there are those who believe, when they believe that they're same, the book of life and the Lamb's book of life is the same. It's the fact that your name is not written in the Lamb's book of life that causes you to go be cast into hell. And there's an argument there, I have to admit. That's a weak point in my understanding, but I still believe it's best to see them as separate, and the Lamb's book of life being an unalterable book of the redeemed, written before the foundation of the world, whereas the Lamb's book of life is edited and altered, and people's names are added and removed freely based on their status as living or dead. And I think that's the case. So it's not, the book of life is not explicitly linked to Christ. The Lamb's book of life obviously is. It's the Lamb. He is the Lamb. So it's his book, and you can have temporary membership in the book of life, but not temporary membership in the Lamb's book of life. It's set from before the foundation of the world. So that reflects eternal election and redemption. So it's not something that you can lose, right? So it's set. And, the book of life is referenced numbers of times in the Old Testament, separate from the church, of course. And the Lamb's book of life is always referred to eschatologically, not currently, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, for instance, and I'll just give these verses to demonstrate it. Exodus chapter 32, and look at verses 32 and 33.
32. But now, if you will forgive their sin, and if not, please blot me out from your book, which you have written.
And the verse 33.
The Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book.
Okay, so that would refer to the book of life, not the Lamb's book of life, but the book of life. So if you sin, I'm going to blot you out of the book of life, meaning I'm going to take your life, right? So he'll judge them by taking their life. Look at Psalm 69, and there's a similar reference in Psalm 69, verse 28.
May they be blotted out of the book of life, and may they not be recorded with the righteous.
So we read that earlier, but still, it's in this context. I still believe that that's the context of this. It's the book of those who are living. And then one more, Psalm 139, verse 16.
Your eyes have seen my unformed substance, and in your book were all written the days that were ordained for me, when as yet there was not one of them.
So here you see that it's a reference to the physical form was written in the book of life. And again, I think that refers to that book that refers to those who are living. And it's a what's it called? Pro-life argument that before they were actually formed, when he was in his mother's womb, his name was already written in the book of life, and his members were there, even before they were fully formed. So it's a pro-life argument there. But I think that's a reference to the book of life, not the Lamb's book of life, but the book of life.
And the days even were ordained,
Yeah, right. So I think that's the difference between the book of life and the Lamb's book of life,
Thank you.
if that helps.